Sorry about the delay. I'm trying to record an intro. Yes, I know, but I'm trying to record an intro. Don't. Here's Luke with his tabletop RPG, as well as a general conversation about video gaming and just cool stuff like that. Enjoy. Cool. Well, thanks for sitting down with me, Luke. I had another guest coming on this week, except they have to do Mother's Day stuff and everything, so I wasn't able to get them to sit down. And I went to our mutual friend Gabriel and was like, dude, can I get you a second time on my... there's no way I'm going to have a guest on time. And he was like, dude, I got you, fam. I got my mate Luke. He'll settle in. But yeah, Luke, did you want to do a quick introduction of yourself and what you're into and what you're working on?
Yeah, I'm just kind of a programmer, I suppose. I work on a bunch of little things. I finish none of them, and yeah, my interests are probably more in the game design sphere as opposed to programming. I don't really do it for the love of it. I do it because it makes the things run.
Yeah, fair enough. Very good.
Yeah, as for what I'm working on, just I'm working on some tabletop projects at the moment. I'm working on like the background lore for a bunch of different games that I want to make. Yeah, just sort of writing, a lot of writing at the moment.
Yeah, I personally have done a lot of DMing for a Dungeons and Dragons game that I played for. I think I ran it for about 6 months or so, where every week we were all huddled around the table for like a decent 6 hours or so each session.
That's the dream. That's the dream.
I was having a lot of fun that entire time. It was good. It was a good time, but I never played. That was the first time I ever played Dungeons and Dragons, and I ran it. And I ran it to a group who had never played before, and we just had a blast. The only problem is I got to the tail end of it, and then I was like, oh man, I wouldn't mind giving it a shot. Does anyone else want to do? And so someone else DM'd, and the entire time I was bored out of my brain. I was like,
oh really?
Oh, I hated playing. I've realized really quickly that I hated playing D&D, but I love running it. I love being in the world. I love reacting. I love the improv of it all. It's a lot of fun.
I would say I'm the opposite, but I started much the same way. I would say that my talents don't really lie in the presentation of the thing. Yeah, it's for me. It's a bit awkward. I'm not really wired that way, I suppose. I like writing the worlds. I like setting up the backstory and stuff. Like I'd be at home writing a setting, something like probably not on the scale of Forgotten Realms or Eberron or something, but I'd be at home writing the setting.
But have you run games before, or?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so much like you, I got started. The very first game I played, I DM'd. And yeah, it was an experience. It was a while before I got anyone else to DM for me, and that was definitely something that I was more interested in, is like the various different things you can sort of do, and when you immerse yourself in the character and stuff, and even just silly little things, that can like add a little bit of spice to a scene or whatever. It's a lot of fun, I think. It was really interesting to find that you sort of felt the opposite. You're a rare breed.
Yeah. I liked the... what's it called? The kind of the improv of it all, where I'm constantly adapting to 5 different people's situations and everything, where I like that on-the-spot thinking and ruling and everything like that. I had this one game, I think like a few months ago, where the big bad, not the big bad, they didn't know it was the big bad at the time, but there was this wraith that was controlling this goblin army, and they successfully rolled a few attempts to bed her, and they were super ecstatic. They're D&D players, they're going to try bed everyone, but they attempted to bed her, and with a few successful rolls, they were able to reveal her true form and realize they were, in fact, banging a wraith.
Yep.
And start roll. And there I was sitting there the entire time going, I have some great deep lore here that I was going to have discoveries, reveals, and you literally came in and nutted all over my plans. Thanks, guys.
That's so typical. It's just like, you think things are going to go one way, and then the players are the spanner in the works every time.
Mm-hmm. That's why I started replanning the way I did lessons, where I put people, characters, motivations, and then I let them go, and then I see which leads they pick up, and then I act on those leads. Because the second you start building up like this big grand narrative, they are going to just walk away and be like, this is boring, let's go to this other place. And it's like, wow, that entire village is going to burn to the ground now. Oh. But that's fine, yeah. So what type of tabletop stuff are you working on?
So I'm actually working on a Dragon Ball fan game at the moment.
Oh yeah.
I'm tentatively calling it Dragon World. Basically, I would see a lot on forums and stuff, just people asking like, how would I run this kind of game? How do I run that kind of game? You know, if it's like based on a property or something, and typically the answer is like, oh, just homebrew 5th edition, bro. And I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, 5th edition is a great game for what it does, but you know, you can't just twist it to become whatever you like, because it's it's heroic fantasy, right? So trying to run a horror game in 5th edition is going to come across a bit silly, because 90% of the rules for 5th edition are combat or like combat related, you know. Advancements and stuff for your character to do better in combat, and you know, items for your character to use in combat and stuff. And so much the same way, I sort of felt like nothing on the market really worked for a game that I wanted to run. So I just started working on it, and for me, it's kind of just like a way to hone like my design sense as well, to try and get some experience where I don't have to program a bunch of systems, then I don't have to, you know, worry about how the graphics are going to interact with things or the UI and stuff. And I think it's working pretty well.
Yeah. I think that, especially the experience that I got from DMing, has helped me in my writing, because I can sit there and I can run a situation in my head to the characters and be able to be like, well, no, they really wouldn't be interested in this, or they wouldn't care about asking this question. Along those lines, with the game that I'm currently creating, I kind of put story to the back burner a bit, and I was like, yeah, so they'll generally want to do this, and they'll generally want to do that, and they'll want to do this and this. And then I had a moment like 2 weeks ago where I was heading down to Melbourne for an event, and I sat down. I was like, okay, I'm going to start writing this stuff, and then I realized, oh dear, actually writing, there is a half to SRPGs that I didn't realize, which is the other half's a freaking dating sim. I have to write all these characters, and I have to write these interactions and the reasons they're there, and the conversations and the relationships between all these people. And I'm like, oh, I've underestimated how crucial a story is.
Oh yeah, especially for an SRPG. Something like Fire Emblem.
Yeah, very much like Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
So,
doing the bonds or whatever they call.
I got to do the believe it or not, the support conversations are the things I'm not very worried about, because at this point I can just implement them mechanically, and I can say the conversation happened, who cares? But the overarching story and why people are in each arena and why a battle has started has come to the surface as recently as, hey, this is no longer oh, this is nice, I'll do this. This is nice, I'll do this. No, they need to be there for a reason. Things need to be happening for a reason. There's only a certain amount of bandits you can throw at the player until they're like, okay, I'm bored now. I need some stakes.
Yes, that's interesting. That's very much like one of my projects that's kind of on the back burner at the moment. I'm very inspired by games like Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to make like a tactical RPG in that vein, and
Mm-hmm.
I had like a basic plot outline, like of sort of like how I want the story to go and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I actually sat down to write how the story begins, I was just lost. I
Yeah,
had no
yeah.
idea how to put the people in the places they needed to be. You know, the various things. Like I had no idea how to utilize this world that I hadn't yet built, obviously, but that I
Mm-hmm.
had aspirations to build. And show
Mm-hmm.
off the various different places and give the players or the characters even reason to go to these places. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I very much feel you there. That's not an easy task.
Yeah, so I've decided to maybe like once a week sit down, maybe like on an off day or whatever, to start writing dialogue, motivations, character profiles, and everything, so I can kind of start tackling that mountain.
Mm.
I don't need, luckily, because I haven't really built the majority of the game out yet. I don't really need the story to keep developing, like the mechanics and everything. But there is going to be a time where I'm going to have to sit down and work on the dialogue. And it's, with the amount of dialogue and the amount of like, with everything I have to do, I almost have to structure it like a screenplay. And when I was sitting down to look at it, like, character enters from left side, mentions this, this has happened, music becomes tenseful. So I think there is going to be a screenplay of my game written up just so I can get it all together.
Yeah, I think that's actually how they do it. Pretty much is
Yeah.
they do basically just write a screenplay, and yeah, it's quite a daunting thing to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got a whole play or a movie or something to write in this unfamiliar format.
So I think the big thing for me is, at the moment, unless if there's a massive rewrite that has to happen in regards to plot holes or whatever, when I'm implementing it, I'm not going to touch the story, or like, I'm not going to implement any of the story or the conversations into the game until I have a full script complete. Because otherwise, I'll be writing stuff and then I'll have to rewrite stuff and I'll have to rewrite stuff, and then I'll be like, oh, this character shouldn't be fitting in here and everything. So,
I think that's wise. Yeah.
I'm really sorry to say this, but I always told myself I'm not going to be one of those guys who has a MacBook and go to a Starbucks and write a screenplay. And I'm now
Yeah.
looking in the mirror going, oh god, I have become that guy who's going to the Starbucks with his MacBook to write a screenplay. What have I become?
Yeah. Next, you're going to be using words like bespoke
Oh,
and
oh,
all that sort of thing. Unironically.
I'm scared. I'm not using bespoke, but it's gonna happen. I just
Yeah.
should lean in and let it happen. Otherwise, if I fight it, it's just gonna cause even more problems. So just switching gears a bit. You've done quite a bit of just game jam stuff and everything, and I just wanted to ask
Yeah.
you for like your experience with that. How'd you get into it? Did you into it with friends? Did you just meet up with groups? If somebody was interested into getting into the game jam space, what would you recommend for them to slide in?
I'm no pro or anything. There's people out there who are way better than me.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of how I got started in game jams and stuff, it was actually I have a group of friends who Gabriel is a part, and
Mm-hmm.
one day, I think about 10 years ago, we just said, "Hey, there's a game jam on. I know how to program. How about we just give it a crack?" And
Mm-hmm.
we had one of our friends who goes by the name Mazza.
Mm-hmm.
He was into like drawing and stuff, so he drew out a whole bunch of like I don't even know what you call them, like animatics almost, for like the
Yep. Yep.
character, which then Gabriel traced over in like pixels, and we had this
Mm-hmm.
like fluidly animated little beef jerky guy from like Dark Souls running in running in like the undead asylum. Like we called it the something sanitarium or something,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we called the game Dim Spirits, and we entered this Game Jolt game jam.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it was
And that
I
was that
think it
your.
was a stressful 2 days or 3 days of
Mm-hmm.
rapidly implementing a endless runner, and we left in the we got one video. Someone kindly took our game and put it in part of one of their like YouTube videos, and we found out
Mm-hmm.
immediately that we left in the debug. So when you press up on the keyboard, you go straight to the boss, and it confused the hell out of her. And I think about it entirely too often.
Well, when you're rushing out a game in 3 days, things like that slip,
Yeah,
even the debug stuff.
absolutely.
I had a playtester. I had something bound to undo,
Oh yeah.
and I had a playtester playing, and they were writing notes and everything, and they pressed undo, and it killed off all the units on the map.
Oh,
And I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot the debug stuff's still there. Oh boy,
there's the
oh
quick kill.
all this for nothing." So I'm fully aware of the experience of leaving stuff in debug.
Yeah,
um,
it doesn't feel any less awful, even knowing that you
yeah,
were under the pump with the
especially
time and the stress.
especially when someone else has put their time and effort aside to sit down and enjoy your product, and then you're like, "Oh,
Absolutely.
I just wasted all their time. Oh no."
Yep,
Even
absolutely.
even a testing situation, that's like, oh gosh. Um, So, was that your first experience with working on games and game engines and stuff, or have you been? Did you dabble before that?
Right. So I started at I want to say 13 years old. There was an
Yeah.
old
Okay.
game engine called Beyond, and that was
Mm-hmm.
yeah, well, that would have been over 20 years now ago
Mm-hmm.
at this
Mm-hmm.
point.
Yeah.
There were yeah. Sorry, go on.
No. You continue.
Oh yeah, sure. There were a bunch of like fan games and stuff. So at the time, I had a bunch of friends who were into the anime Naruto. So
Mm-hmm.
we got together and we said, "This can't be so hard. Look at all these games. They're up here." And the Beyond game engine, it's a networked engine, right? So it handles all the
Mm-hmm.
networking for you, and
Mm-hmm.
um, all of the like nitty gritty. Like it displays tiles. It makes it really easy to just like place something together and sort of
Mm-hmm.
get something playable in like like a rapid time frame. So for us, we just sort of started with the design, and we made this thing, and we were a bit entirely too pompous about it. We're doing like closed tests and stuff, and uh, good times. But I looked over the code just before this interview actually, and ooh, not good.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that experience. I've gone back to previous products and previous games, and I've gone, why have I done it this way?
Yeah,
Like, you can only look at that and go, oh my gosh, I've improved. But still, I'm sitting there going, this is disgusting. Why would I ever do that? And the worst bit is, I know I'm going to come back to my current project
you do exactly the
sometime
same
in the
thing.
next few years, and I'm going to be like, this is
Yep.
disgusting. What? Why? Why
I
did
don't
you
think I've ever
render
been
all this? Why did
proud.
you do all this?
Yeah, I don't
Um,
think I've ever been proud of anything I've written code
uh,
wise.
I'm proud of the final product, and that's it. Anything under the hood of the final product, I don't want anyone to look at. But the final product, I'm happy with.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I had a similar situation when I was like 10 or 13. I had RPG Maker XP or something, and I
Ah,
would
yes.
spend hours and hours of creating my own little games and trying to make the engine do things that it shouldn't have done to begin with. A lot of uh, block pushing puzzles, and a lot of trying to make an action system where I can hit the spacebar to slap enemies and everything. But um, I I think that's the first thing that I actually sat down and was like, oh man, I can make a game. I can actually do this. So it's cool to hear that you're at a young age. You've also picked up a game engine. You've been like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, I think these game engines that are like really, they've got like a low barrier to entry are really important for that kind of thing, and they can really help with like the confidence necessary to like get into these things. Because I also remember after my time with Beyond, I looked into sort of like 3D engines at the time, and they were all just like just straight C code or C++, and I had no idea how to read it. And there was like very little in the way of documentation that was going to explain to me, what the various like buzzwords they used or technical terms they used meant, especially in those days. So it was like
it was technical terms made for technical people, and
exactly.
It's definitely hard to kind of pick that up. And I in regards to the barrier to entry, that's why I'm really enjoying Godot, because you can download that sucker and it's only in like 40 megs or something, and you're off to the races. With Unity and Unreal, even though they may have fantastic 3D features, you're still making an account, downloading, updating, building, and by the time you sat down and gone, I'm going to make something, I'm going to try build something, you've already spent like 30 minutes trying to make the accounts get into it before you even started to write or make something. And I think that barrier to entry is just a bit of a pain, especially for someone who's trying to dip their toes in the water.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
But,
they have their place though.
They do definitely have their place, and if you get to, I reckon, when you get to that AAA space, like it's a no-brainer. The features, the stuff that you don't want to be doing yourself, like a lot of the networking stuff that it just handles, leaderboards and stuff for Unity handles. It just is like, yeah, here's some space on a server. We'll do the leaderboards for you. Don't even think about it. Like that's a nightmare in Godot. You'd have to host your own server and get it all done instead of just being like, here, leaderboard done, excellent, next.
I think for the game jolt thing that we did, actually, we also had that experience, and they had like a library that we were like using with Game Maker.
Okay.
Yeah, they gave us like this library, and we had to like display all the information ourselves, which was kind of annoying because again, 2-3 days, so we had to figure out the UI for it at the end. But even that was just kind of like, there's just like random calls and things don't react the way you expect and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I can definitely second that. It's a nightmare working with these things.
I'm not like the experience I got from it like outweighs any negatives I had from it. It was type 2 fun where it wasn't fun at the moment, but I look back at it and I'm like, man, I made all that. I did all that. I did all that from scratch. So I think it's probably a flaw that I handle too much myself and I don't create a team or people to look after other things. But at least from what I've messed around with, I'm glad I've messed around with the stuff manually being created and stuff, because it's given me experience and again, like you're not going to become perfect overnight. You just got to keep throwing yourself at the stuff and you'll get better. Yeah.
Yep. You got to go through all the bad to get to the good.
Mm-hmm. To get to, not even to get to the good, to get to the decent.
To get to the okay,
to get to the okay, and then it's a long climb to good.
Very true, very true.
Yeah. So, I'm just gonna maybe pivot a bit. What's the first video game you remember playing?
Oh, good question. Maybe it was either, I want to say, A Link to the Past or Super Mario Bros. Maybe 3.
Good choice. Link to the Past was a freaking good game.
Yeah.
My first one was Mario All Stars, and explicitly walking into the pit on the first level over and over and over and over, and my mother had a bunch of excitement, had a bunch of joy watching me just drop in and unable to comprehend how to jump.
Yeah, that would have been either Super Mario Bros. 1 or Lost Levels, maybe.
I think it was one. So I think
Yeah.
there's like a first Goomba, and then I run into the Goomba consistently and trying to Neuralink the jump into it, but obviously
Mhm.
that hasn't worked. But I remember playing Link to the Past. I didn't have it. Didn't have Link to the Past on SNES, but I did have it. I did play it on GBA after when it got re-released on GBA, and I freaking
Okay.
fell in love with that game. That was it was. It's funny how a lot of the SNES games, even now, like hold up. Even graphically, they hold up very well.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's the stylization and stuff that they've done.
mm-hmm,
It's amazing.
definitely. Because while I have a lot of fondness for N64 games, you go back to an N64 game these days, and it can be hard to stomach. I think there's a few like good exceptions where they've kind of really leaned into it. Like
Mm.
I want to say Banjo Kazooie off the top of my head. Even Mario
Yeah.
64, while I would say is a very technically impressive game, I still don't think it looks great, but it's still like it's just an error of that polygonal like trying to get used to like how do we even move someone in 3D where there's issues, but yeah, no, there's something about SNES games like it's just the limitations that they were working with and everything, and they had just enough power to make things look fantastic, and yeah,
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, it was the end of an era, right? So like they were at the peak
it
of their
definitely
game.
was.
So
I,
they had like you said those limitations, and limitations technically like they tend to breed that kind of
mhm.
like that workaround.
Innovation, yeah.
Yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
innovation, all of the little,
Mm-hmm.
what would you even call it? Just like
Technical. I want to say the word. I want to say
I've lost the word,
compromise. I want
but
to
yeah,
say like a
basically.
technical compromise type thing where they're like, we want to do this. This is the only way we're going to be able to pull it off and make it look good.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
technical optimizations and stuff too. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's like
Mm-hmm.
a whole bunch of crazy stuff, and so like that's the SNES and like the Genesis and stuff. It's like the end
Mm-hmm.
of the era. They're at the top of the game, and then
Mm-hmm.
we hit the PlayStation, we hit the 64, and everything's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
like on the shaky baby legs, and no one
Yeah.
really knows what they're doing. And I mean, you just have to look at 64 with the camera
Mm-hmm.
controls. They're crazy. Um,
Yeah. They're like, how do we actually do this? And everyone takes a second stick like for
yeah,
granted these days, but they genuinely had zero clue how to do that. Like everything was tank controls
yeah,
until
absolutely. I
like
mean, the 64 was even inverted, and like
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
if you say you play inverted nowadays, which I play double
I'm
inverted.
I'm I'm it's a force of habit. Blame the M64. Don't blame me.
Yeah. Well, I'm worse. I play double inverted, so I have to invert the up and down and the left and right now. So I don't know
Oh
what's wrong
my
with me.
gosh. That's the end of the. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's the end of the line. You've gone too far.
okay. You know what? I don't feel bad about playing
You
inverted
shouldn't.
now.
You shouldn't.
Half the reason anyone should play inverted when you're younger back in the day was just so other people didn't touch your controller.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, is it my turn? Yeah, sure, it's my turn. I don't want to play inverted. I'll wait for
I
the
don't.
next
I
one.
don't play anymore. Yeah.
um, I think I started the charge, and then the rest of my family followed with me because I kept changing the setting on them. And I'm like, oh, whatever. But yeah, ever since I want to say Halo 2 on the Xbox, I done nothing but play inverted. Um, yeah, yeah, which
Yeah.
is
I
a bit
think I
weird because
started
now.
inverted, and then I think I was playing Dark Souls one day, and for some reason the side to side camera movement just wasn't working for me. I was just like, maybe I invert it, and
Yeah.
here I am, a freak of nature.
The freak of nature. No one's touching your controller at all. If
Yep,
anyone wants to mess with your stuff, it's done. No. They're
it's
not even going to
cursed.
be able to walk out of the first area. Um,
I'm the same way when you can't invert too. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Yeah, there's just games that aren't limited. You're just unable to play because you can't invert the horizontal. I can't think of many games that would actually have a setting that allows you to invert the horizontal. Is that a common? It's not a common setting that that I generally look for.
It's pretty common nowadays.
Okay.
Maybe 5-10 years ago it wouldn't have been though.
Mm-hmm. So, Dark Souls. How how long have you played that? How much have you gone through for that? Because I've gone through all of them except for Elden Ring. I haven't touched Elden Ring, and I'm scared to touch Elden Ring because I know that's going to black hole like 2 months of my life.
Absolutely will. Yeah, I've played them all.
And
I love them all.
oh, jeez, I loved one, and I know there's a lot of mixed feelings about two, but I genuinely did like two as well. But three was fantastic. I was really happy with three, and I had a lot of fun doing just meme runs with friends on three.
I had a lot of fun with the PvP in three. It was so good. I don't know. I got really into it. I played a lot of the PvP in two as well, but I don't know if it was just my internet at the time or if it was just being in Australia and like the matchmaking wasn't great. But I had a lot of bad experiences into with the PvP, like getting backstabbed across the entire map and like zooming all the way over to them, and you know, the typical they're invincible, but they can hit you, uh, and that game also the adaptation stuff where I think it was some crazy thing like the hitbox was actually left behind in the original location when you rolled, and depending on your adaptation, you had different iframes and stuff. I don't know. There was something really janky going on there. I don't know if they ever fixed it, but
I mean,
I would say that I enjoyed it at first, but I've grown to hate that game.
I haven't played a Souls. Once I beat three, I played one or two meme runs just with friends for like an afternoon, but then dropped it. I know some people who are still like religiously playing Elden Ring consistently, next run, and I'm like, oh man, that sounds so damn good, but I also don't want to touch it.
Yeah, I can understand it, but I think if you liked three, you'll probably end up in the same camp as me, where the game is amazing. The game is a technical wonder. It's a masterpiece in many ways, but I found the scaling, the math of the game to be off at a certain point, and I think that was also something that people talked about a lot when the DLC dropped because of the way that they did the scaling in the DLC. Now I won't go into it obviously because it might put you off the game, or you might be thinking about it. You get the game designer brain when you're playing the game and stuff, and that's always awful. But just some things like sort of I think are inevitable because of the open nature of it, and some other things were maybe not thought out so well.
I did notice that because a lot of Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 are very Metroidvania, where you're walking around until you can get keys to open up areas and other areas, and or trying to open doors or open gates or open shortcuts and everything. And I have noticed just from the general nature of Elden Ring, it looks like it's, at least from the surface, I haven't played yet so I can't say, but from the surface it has that Breath of the Wild look where it's like, can you really be a Metroidvania or like tightly designed if you're in a big open space in a big open world? Again, I could be completely speaking out of my rear, but it's just I feel like it's the nature of that open space.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like the various like sort of gameplay blocks, I guess you would say. Like if we take Dark Souls, there's the original Firelink Shrine, and then you can go to the Berg, and you can go down if you have the key to the valley, get to Blighttown early and stuff. But like, you basically have to do the Berg, and you have to do Blighttown to get through Sens, because that's a big block, and then you sort of enter another section of the game, like another node of the game, if you will, and then you can go to different places from there, and so on and so forth. But Elden Ring is a little bit more open than that. Yeah, it's not 100% open because there are definitely things you have to actually do, like break through the barrier to the next node, but it's much less tightly designed as a consequence of being an open world thing, and it does suffer somewhat for it, I think.
This is a thematic thing for Dark Souls 1 and 2 and 3 that I I don't know. I'm the only person who I feel like I'm the only person who thinks this. But the one thing I liked about Dark Souls 1 is you kind of like accumulated all those souls, and then you'd go to a bonfire, and then you'd burn them, and then you'd become stronger. And you did that under your kind of like your own volition, your own strength, your own trial, your own tribulation. And then the follow-up games, you had to go back to Firelink Shrine and get someone else to do it for you. And like, this is the biggest nitpick. Like, there could not be a bigger nitpick than this. But I'm like, half the fun of Dark Souls 1 to me was, hey, I got stronger. I did better. I killed these people. I got the strength. Surely I have the ability to become stronger myself without the need of a Firelink Shrine Maiden.
Right, yeah, the maidens. It's a callback to Demon Souls with the maiden in black.
I wouldn't know because I didn't have a PlayStation or so I haven't played the remake or the original, but that is like the biggest nitpick in the world, and everyone I mention that to is like, dude, that's like not an issue. Why are you even thinking about it? I'm like, I don't know why.
I mean, I wouldn't say that for me it's an issue, but I can see where you're coming from. Having to go back, like even just from like kind of like a UI perspective, having to go back, going through that loading screen to go talk to the maiden is something that I think every like rule of UI tells you to avoid. It's like the least clicks or something to whatever you're trying to get. There's like some kind of fancy rules. Sorry, I don't know. I'm self-taught. But
the other thought I have is thematically, Dark Souls is like is all about persevering until you become stronger. And you became stronger. You get to make yourself level up, not someone else. But
right, yeah.
It's me. I don't think anyone's had that thought, and it's just me. And I had to get it out of my head and into the world so that everyone can tell me, no, that's not an issue. Shut up.
I don't know. I think I might be one of the only people who kind of sees where you're coming from there. Then, like. The feel of the game is very important to me. It's part of the reason why I actually started working on Dragon World in particular. Like, you know, I not to go too in depth to a game that's unfinished and subject to change here, but I like specifically like, you know, D&D has, you know, strength, dexterity, constitution, int, wisdom, charisma, and I was like, well, I could do that, or I could sort of build it more around the fantasy of being a martial artist. So I have skill, reflexes, toughness, determination, confidence, and endurance, I believe it is. And magic, but we don't talk about magic. It's uncompleted.
Yeah, fair enough. I you know, even I fell in the same trap of falling into the trope of just going strength, defense, constitution.
I mean, if it's
that type of thing,
and don't fix it, right?
If I tried very hard to kind of shake it up and come up with a new formula and everything, but every time I did it, I was like, this is not satisfying, and everyone who's looking at it is going, I don't know what's happening, and the last thing I want people to do is be like, what? How does this come into the picture? How does this come into the picture? And it's like, oh man, I've done a bad job as a designer here.
That is a problem I've run into. I've written like paragraphs about like why this is that, like, you know, confidence. It's not really about like being confident. The idea is it's like your confidence in your ability, right? So like your ability to trust yourself to do something risky, or
in like a reflex or something, or if you're trying to do something that may not work, you're like, yeah, I know exactly how to do this. I can do this.
Yeah, so it's like also it ties into the idea of the key system as well. So I don't know if you know anything about Dragon Ball lore.
I know the memes, and that's it.
I see. Okay, so before he passed, Toriyama gave an interview about the key being made up of 3 parts, and it's like Genki, Yuki, Shoki, which is like healthy body, kind of like, you know, life energy, courage basically, and right-mindedness. And like the right-mindedness is what the confidence sort of is all about. So it's like, you know what you can do, you know what you know what you're capable of. So like it's like a source of strength, a well of strength that you can draw from. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be interesting to put into a like a design. It seems like an interesting design challenge to put into a tabletop RPG, because I've heard people put like an extra stat in for like honor or something for their D&D games and everything, but going from scratch using kind of just a non-standard stat system, like everyone knows strength, everyone knows intelligence. So have you done many playtests with this system at the moment? Have you got some good feedback from it? Do you have a specific way you're doing playtests with people, or is it still to the side thought experiment at the moment?
Yeah, no, we've done quite a few playtests, and I think it's quite smooth. The game runs relatively fast. Like, I don't know if you've ever had the experience in D&D where, well, I mean, there's two here that I'm going to bring up, but you have the experience of someone like coming and hiring what they're going to do on their turn, and sort of like taking forever, and then like it comes to your turn, and then you've got your one action, try and make it count, and you're rolling the d20, and it's like, I have about a 55% chance of just doing nothing here.
Doing nothing here, yeah.
I thought that felt awful. So I tried to weight the I guess success and stuff in the way of whoever's like acting. So like the active participant is more likely to succeed, to like move things forward, like because there's a idea, especially like amongst DMs and stuff, is like fail forward, right?
Yeah, so, fail forward. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so like you do an acrobatics check to like climb up a sheer wall. It's not necessarily that you fall and hurt yourself and you can't try again or anything. It's you fall and hurt yourself, but you eventually get off the wall, take X damage, and you're up there. Yeah.
You like crush your hand or something a bit, and you take some damage, but you're still up there.
Exactly. So I tried to like fold that in to the game in as many different ways as I can, and I think so far it's pretty well had great effects in moving things forward and making combat flow and all that sort of thing. I typically do it on like Tabletop Simulator. If you've ever used it, it's a great resource.
Especially because you can just get a bunch of beads and then all agree that this is a monster here. You don't need to have any fancy things. You can just have grid, placeholder items, go to town.
Yep, it's that barrier to entry thing again. It's a brilliant program.
I haven't run D&D on Tabletop Simulator. I tried, but I found that the physics-based stuff and like nature of everything made everything a little bit too painful for people. And on top of that, especially trying to get someone new in, again, barrier to entry. I found that like using Roll20, where it's just a web page, they don't need to install anything. They literally just have to log in, click the invite, and they're in the game. And like, I can drag this around the web page. I can play a thing. And even though I don't think it's as powerful of a tool, it is still incredibly fun to kind of just sit and laugh and scream at each other. And
absolutely.
Especially when you've got someone who's like wants to play D&D but doesn't have that same level of it's got that level of skepticism where they don't want to kind of like there are some people that seriously think that they're going to install a virus any second, and installing anything new on their computer is an issue. So just having that open, the reason I like Roll20 so much is just because people can be like, I can log into my browser, that's fine, easy.
Yeah, it's also nice. I think Roll20 is great to be able to make like the macros. Like for a bunch of time, I was actually setting things up on Roll20, even if they weren't like D&D related. Like we played a bunch of like I would say homebrewed stuff. Like we played a Common Rider campaign based on like a system someone had dreamed up, just on the internet somewhere. We found it and we pieced it together because it was incomplete, and I drew up a bunch of macros basically so people could just like click if they wanted to do an attack or a stylish attack, or if they wanted to rest, or if they wanted to do this and that, and it would output all the information to the chat log, just like and that was another like keeping things moving measure as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have players that do for a good 10 minutes, like a good 20 minutes. They'll sit there and they'll weigh the pros and cons of the situation, just far too long. And I listened to a YouTube video by I think it was Matt Colville,
Mm-hmm.
who talked about putting like a time limit on the deliberation by forcing action. Like if they just spend too much time, they start hearing a rustling in the bushes, and then they're in an encounter for taking too long. But it allows them to fight, and then they'll get to the other end and they're like, what are we doing again? Oh yeah, let's just go.
Yeah, no, I gotta say that drives me off the wall too.
I like careful planning. I like them making this massive machine and watching it fall apart or succeed. I think it's great. But the second, I had, for all intents and purposes, a murder hobo through my first campaign who was like, I don't give a crap about talking to people. Give me the loot. I'm ready to stab people. And then I had the person who just liked the careful planning and the strategizing, and I had the other person who just was like, I want to go piss everyone off. I want to talk to people and piss them off.
And then this other guy comes along and burns it down, pisses on it basically, and ruins it for the guy. Yeah, that sucks.
I think I had I guess I can say the honor of being able to have such a diverse group and cater for each of them.
It's certainly a good first experience. You see the whole gamut of like player ecology.
Mm-hmm.
I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have any, like, if you were held with a gun to your head, do you have any tabletop games that you would recommend to people if that kind of fit, like, you think have done something interesting?
Interesting. So I did play a Japanese tabletop game. It was, I think it was pretty sloppy, honestly, but it's very different. I find the Japanese games, they're very different to the Western ones that we find. They've got a real focus on the idea of like scenes as well, like where like they parcel things out as like, okay, here's this scene, and then the scene's over, and then we move on to the next scene, kind of thing. And like the scene might be like a room in the dungeon, or you talking to NPCs, or getting your quests at the guild or something, and
kind of like a railroady, like you do this, A, B, C, D.
Yeah, I think the players still have the agency. I'm not certain because it's one of those, like, most of my experience with it, seeing how it's played, is one of those like pre-written, groups who totally existed, trademark. They the play sections kind of thing. I don't even know what you'd call it. It's just like it's written out like line by line. Okay, I do this. Okay, I do that. And the DM's like, oh, that's great. Let's try this. And so yeah, it's like based on this like scene stuff. And the RPG that we played was Konosuba one. Konosuba being a fantasy isekai comedy like stuff up thing. It's a silly show for silly people, and this is like some kind of like retrofitted thing for it, but just like having like that perspective on how another culture views the hobby tabletop was interesting enough that I would suggest that anyone who's interested in tabletop stuff to go check out Japanese stuff, go check out German stuff, like Shadowrun is huge in Germany, go check out French stuff, all of it.
I think Super Bunny Hop did a video recently where he basically traced down the majority of turn-based like wargaming back to some German pastime that people did, and the problem with that original German pastime that they had was they get success and they're like, now we're going to make it even more complicated. They just focused on the complexity, and there are people out there that are insane and like to have like that complexity, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be complexity, because people out there love their complexity. I like my complexity in my own different ways. But they had, when they initially released the product, I can't remember what it was called, but they had initial rules, and then once with the success, they're like, we just need more, and then success drained out because of the general success drained out because of the complexity. But
yeah, that's interesting. Have you ever sort of come across that kind of thing yourself? Thinking about like, various different projects I've had, and I think I can see where they're coming from.
I know. So I was working on a game called Not in the Waking Wild. I still want to play. I still want to make it and create it. The problem is when I was creating the system, I was making too many if cases. Like, oh, what if I want to implement this in the future, or what if I want to implement in this future? I made it modular to a fault.
Yeah,
that everything was too heavy to quickly build stuff. So that's not really from a player perspective, but that's definitely from a design perspective where I overcomplicated it on myself. In regards to like a game overcomplicating itself, I mean, I really want to get into like not flight sims, but like the space sims and everything. But every time I've tried to get into a space sim, like with the HOTASes and everything, I'm consistently overwhelmed, and every time I can't even get through trial dogfights. So if anyone needs something flown, it's not me. But
I know how you feel. Yeah.
But the thing is, I feel like there's no space. I could be wrong. There could be something out there that I don't know about. But I would like a space game that isn't exactly sim, but still has the experiences that the sim ones kind of grant.
Yeah. So something like Elite Dangerous, but a little bit more like simmy, just a little bit.
Yeah. I've tried Elite Dangerous, and I'm constantly looking at the keyboard and going like, "What's this one do again? What's this one do? How do I open this? How do I get rid of the landing gear? How do I do this?" And I'm like, I feel personally as a designer, there's got to be something there where it's like, yeah, it knows I'm about to land. I'm on the ground. I'm going onto the ground. Put the gears out for me.
Yeah, Gabriel's going to give me shit for bringing this up. I played Ace Combat recently for the first time. It does a whole bunch of that stuff for you. It's very arcadey.
Yeah.
In that way. Yeah, it's like, this. It's a cool game. I recommend it. If you're interested in campy wartime stories.
I have seen videos of people recommending it on the weird thing that like, and I think we should go to the Geneva Conventions and say all aerial dogfighters should only be able to speak on all chat and scream at each other. I think we should go straight to the Geneva Convention and then make an addendum and just say, if you are flying, you need to be able to mad shit talk the other pilots like it's an Xbox Live open lobby. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. I'd sign up immediately.
I'll get the petition all written up. I'll get your signature. I think there'll be another 3, and we'll submit it.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so it's combat, right? It's like this arcadey thing. I played recently a much more in-depth game called Nuclear Option, and that game you have to control, your landing gear, like you just mentioned before, and you got to worry about turbulence, and you got to worry about like you can't take a turn too hard, or your plane will start tearing itself apart, and
or you'll black out. You'll start blacking out. I hate that. Yeah. I'm in a spaceship with firing lasers. I don't want to worry about blacking out.
Exactly. It's like, you got to worry about like, they've got a laser lock on you, so you got to fly low, and like it's all happening at once too, because it's all on a big battlefield, and it's just overwhelming. It's just, I think I joined the boys for a couple sessions of that game, and I just got shot down repeatedly. Like I was getting shot down over and over and over. I was having a blast, just being useless, but it was still like, yeah, very overwhelming. It's like that like level of complexity that's maybe not conducive to casual play.
Yeah, I get the same thing from Counter Strike, where
Oh yeah,
I enjoy it because I walk around just going around slapping people and shooting people with funny guns and everything. But there are some people who have played that game since like 20 years ago, no DE
yeah.
dust, and they're like, if I haven't seen them here, I haven't heard any movement here. If they only have options to be here, here, or here, swing around the corner, I'm dead. I'm like, what was this?
Some of them are so good, and they can just be like, all right, well, you went there, you went there, you're going to be here. 3, 2, 1, pre-shoot, you're dead.
Bang, and I'm like, oh my. Half, I'm like, do I pause? Do I wait? Do I do this to throw them off? And then
Somehow they always know.
like, and then they'll always know. I get the same feeling from Quake players. I have a mate who's a really big Quake player, and they're like armor, pick up here, fire rocket, and then I'm around the corner, direct hit by a rocket. I'm like,
yeah, no, the multiplayer Boomer Shooter guys are a different breed altogether.
Oh, they very much are. While I enjoy that fast-paced gameplay and everything, you've got to give a lot of yourself to it to compete well.
You really do.
And I don't have the time to kind of like. I mean, if you're gonna play a multiplayer shooter, in my opinion, like consistently, like pick one and get really, really, really good at it, and and because like you can waste I mean, it's not all a waste of time to play with friends, but I think if you're gonna play a multiplayer shooter where you're kind of playing for the sake of playing, pick one and get really, really good at it. I mean, I think I'm like that with Halo. I'm really, really, really good at Halo, and I was playing yesterday and with a mate, and I was shooting people from across the map and laughing and ending up with half the kills, but I'm toxic like that, so.
It is what it is. I played a lot of Tribes Ascend back in the day before Hi-Rez ruined it, and
right.
that game's really interesting actually because you can get really good at like fighting and be useful to your team, but the typical game mode is actually capture the flag. So you've got like Pathfinders, who are the guys who like zoom in at like 300 kilometers an hour and like grab the flag and try and survive on the way back. And that was always the role that I liked because I don't know, I enjoy that kind of thing where you get a path, you figure out like the optimal way there, and then you perfect it. It's it's kind of like running away.
Yeah, and the other thing I like is because it's all physics-based weapons. You're not aiming directly at them; you're aiming where they're going to be, and when you land that hit of where they're going to be, you're just sitting there, chef kiss, awesome.
There's nothing like a blue plate special. There's absolutely nothing like
it. Oh man, do they have any new games coming? Any new ones? I vaguely remember they released one. It did decently, and then they just completely dropped it. And I think they've re-released it recently. I can't remember.
I'm not sure. They tried to bring back Tribes Ascend briefly. They released Tribes 3 or 4. I forget what it's called. To, I would say, mixed opinions. They did like a beta thing, and then they released the game properly. I think it's not doing amazingly. It felt really weird to play, and like everything was like all of the maps were really small, and they just kind of missed the point, in my opinion. But I'm not an old Tribes guy, so some of those guys might disagree with me. I don't know.
Yeah, you're not one of the hardcore people. It's all like, oh, there's too many polygons. I don't get enough frames.
Exactly. I didn't play with the first game. I didn't play the second game. I only played Ascend, and
I played a bit of Ascend with friends. I thought it was a lot of fun. But man, you keep running into these people who they're just massive Tribes fans.
Yeah, so they've been playing since day dot.
You stand zero chance, and I can understand like the games. It's like, hey, I'm objectively better than you, so I'm going to objectively do better than you. But you can't help but feel like, oh man, I just got stomped again and again.
Yeah,
and again.
Well, I mean, when movement is so complex too. You know, it's like it's another layer on top of like the gunplay, on top of like the gunplay itself also being like more complex than your average game in that like you've got the velocity based stuff that it doesn't work like other games. You need like that time in it and stuff, and
To
then
kind
like
of
the
get those
movement.
timings down, yeah.
Yeah, the movement too. It's like you have to make sure that you turn your skis off when you're going uphill and hit your jetpack before you actually start moving upwards to maximize your velocity, and make sure that you don't lose any speed here and there, and make sure that when you're coming, you got to hit the hill right so you don't lose velocity and it's going into the ground. And it's like it's so deep.
I get the same. I got the same experience from Dota, and that's kind of the opposite side of the shoe where I played a lot of Dota for like a few years, and I recently got back into it. Heaven forbid, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, and I need to uninstall it, but I keep going back. I'm back in the hard drug addiction, which is Dota 2. But I came back and I was surprised how much of that muscle memory, like that strategic memory and everything, came back like immediately. Where I was like, oh well, I know exactly what I'm going to do here. I've got timing for this. I can be here. They may have changed or changed a bunch of the abilities and everything, but I was still clicking around like a madman and everything and being like, oh, I actually know what's happening right now. I'm playing really well.
So, yeah, I mean, it's like riding a bike. You do it the first time.
Very much so.
You get your skills, and they just sort of never really go away.
Yeah. One thing I liked from Dota, and I think less the Dota and more Transistor is, they had the 4 ability kind of system, but then you could grab those individual abilities and use them to modulate other abilities. For instance, they had this one quick attack called Ping, and then you could apply that quick attack to another attack to make that attack come out quicker. And I've always been playing around with that system. I've wanted to play around with that system for a game, but I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but
if I can make a suggestion,
I like it. Yeah.
Top games are the perfect medium for testing this kind of thing. It's I've taken like a game design course as like part of my university stuff as well, and it's just like a known sort of like technique for game designers to like make a paper prototype, and it doesn't have to be like serious or anything. It can just be like, you can literally take that example where you have like the base ability is ping or something, and that can just be like a instant quick cast low damage thing, and then you can add like modifiers to it, which is,
and then you can
incidentally a system incidentally that's a system I'm using in Dragon World, where to make like signature attacks you have like a base sort of attack, like if it's a beam or a bomb or a combo or whatever, and then you add modifiers to it, so like blinding or winding or a rush attack and moves people around, like knockback, or knocks people into things and does a little bit more damage or whatever, right?
Yeah, I guess you're right. A paper prototype would be mainly because there's something about being able to physically shuffle things around. You could probably make some digital cards or whatever, but being able to physically pick something up, put it into position, and be like, oh well, if I combine this and this and this, if I can have a circle, a triangle, and a square, what if I use this for the circle, for this for the triangle, and this for the square? Yeah, I think I should mess around with that. I've been wanting to play around with that idea, but I just haven't got to it. But I think
when you get to the math too,
is a good idea.
When you get to the math too, it's gonna sound maybe a bit silly, but use a spreadsheet. I do almost all my designing on a spreadsheet.
I've got a big weapon database that Gabriel actually has access to, because I edited it all, and he says, can you look at this real quick? And then there's a flood of comments saying, why is this is dumb, why is this, no other weapons using this, why not?
Why is it here? Yeah.
I have the big stats database for all my weapons in the game and everything, and that's going to be the final. that's going to be the final to do, is to kind of transcribe that, make the adjustments, and then do a final transcribe until everything's perfect. But yeah. So I'll just close. Yeah, I'll just close it off. If anyone wants to go check out your stuff, what's the best place to find you?
Good question. I don't really have many forward-facing things. Probably just check out Dim Spirits on Game Jolt. Check out Senbazuru and Best Birthday on itch.io by Entropy Game Dev. I worked on those.
Cool.
Yeah, keep an eye out for the world, maybe.
Do you have just to kind of run it through? So you're making the Dragon World.
Yeah.
Have you got plans to kind of de-Dragon Ball it and release it as its own product, or is it more just a fan thing?
Yeah, I have definitely thought about it. I could pretty easily like de-Dragon Ball it and sort of sell it as like a shonen anime kind of, like fight of the week kind of system, and I think it would work pretty well. But it might take a bit of doing, because there is a lot of
stuff,
a lot of like the soul. A lot of the soul of the thing is very Dragon Ball related, because that's like very important to me, is like the feeling of it.
Of it all.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, sorry to like jam that in after you said, "Hey, where can you find my stuff?" But if if there's ever a public release of Dragon World, I'll be the first person to tell everyone to check it out. Thank you very much for sitting down and having the conversation.
No problem. Yeah, you too.